the sex industry. So, I have some pretty strong opinions about this. When I was 17, I had a boyfriend, and I was working two jobs, and he would work sometimes, but not all the time. And so I was basically supporting him, paying the bills, working my butt off for minimum wage at two different jobs. And one night we had a night out, girls' night, boys' night. I went out with my girlfriends, he went out with his boyfriends. And when the girls and I were driving around, I went, I think that's my car at the titty bar. And they were like, well, no, da da da. I'm like, let's spin around. So we did. And sure enough, when you drive an old beater, you can tell them apart. It was my car. So the boys had gone to the titty bar. Now, I'd given my boyfriend money so he could go out with his friends that night. And I marched my little butt in there. Things weren't as regulated back then. I marched in, and he was laying, his back down, his mouth up, dollar bill sticking out of his mouth, and a girl was about to pick up that dollar bill with something other than her hands, shall we say. I tapped him on the shoulder. I told him that I did not approve, and I left. And I thought about my anger, because he was still out with the boys, right? And it was that I worked really, really, really hard for that money. And he was using it to attract another woman, is how I felt about it. So, of course, fights occurred and continued to occur. And he kept telling me that I was pretty enough and that it was an honorable way to make money and that you could make a killing, and I could do that too, and there's nothing wrong with it, and these girls were just working and no big deal. So he went on a trip where he was supposed to be getting a job, and I applied at the local titty bar. Now, don't get me wrong, I got up on the stage and I ran off and I threw up. But if it's an honorable work and these girls aren't doing anything wrong, there shouldn't be a problem with it, right? And I did. I tried again, and there's a story there. Couldn't be a stripper. But the owner of the club called me and said, we understand you don't have this, but we need a waitress. Would you mind doing that? And I was like, oh yeah, I can waitress. I got that. So I went in, and I was only 17, but I showed him my ID. And back then, the habit was if somebody showed you their ID, they must be old enough. So he kind of looked at it, but didn't check the date. And I started doing cocktails. That particular club had just sodas. Alcohol wasn't allowed. So that's fine. So my boyfriend comes back from his trip, and now I have a new job as a cocktail waitress or soda waitress in a titty bar. And he was furious. He was absolutely furious. I wasn't taking my clothes off. I wasn't on stage. All I was doing was serving drinks, and it was just sodas. But he wasn't going to date someone who worked in one of those places. Yeah, it's an honorable field. There's nothing wrong with it. These girls are just making a living, but you can't date someone who works in one of those fields because she is somehow tarnished or dirty because she would even work there. We broke up. I kept the job. So it took a while. It took quite some time. Eventually I started cleaning the mirrors or, cleaning the pole down between the sets or this and that. And I got more comfortable with the stage, and I got more comfortable with the nudity, and I started dancing eventually. I was really lucky. The club owner was an old burlesque dancer, so it wasn't about the bump and grind and the sleaze. It was about putting on a show. So most of the girls that work there, likewise, very talented, very skilled, spent a lot of time practicing their pole work, and it was about putting on a show. Club eventually closed down, and I moved on to Vegas, Reno, some of the top clubs in the Northwest. I stayed in that field for probably a decade. I tried to get out a few times, right? Because it's not, people ask you, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I'm a dancer, and there's automatically that connotation that you're dirty, or that you're sleazy, or that there's something wrong with you because you're doing that. But it's a market, isn't it? There are hundreds and thousands, probably millions of men who go to those places, and they give women money to look at them, to talk to them, to be around them, to flirt with them. Most of these clubs have bouncers and security, so there is some safety there. And I know I've worked with some really good bouncers. So if it's an honorable place to go, and men should be welcome, and they get their friends together and they go in groups, they take business colleagues there, and there's nothing wrong with it, then what's wrong with the girls that work there? It's a job. It's a job that there's a very high market for. I think they need to deregulize the rules and restrictions on women. When you're looking at should prostitution, is it a crime, and who gets convicted, they go after the girls that are in the sex industry. Every once in a while you hear about them raiding the Johns, but that's generally not what happens. They go after the girls because the girls shouldn't be doing this and the girls shouldn't be, and blah, blah, blah. And there are some definite abuses. I am not going to lie to you about that. Women are bought and sold all over the place. But that's because they don't have the ability to make those choices for themselves. It needs to be decriminalized. Women should be able to have control and make decisions for their own bodies. If they want to expose themselves, that should be their right. If they want to engage in coitus with people for money, that should be their right. It is their body. Men sell themselves all of the time. You see ads, must be able to lift 100 pounds. A lot of women are only 100 pounds, so they can't apply for those jobs. Here's some discrimination there. But if men can sell themselves and they can sell their brawn and they can sell their ability to produce a product that other people want, why are we limiting women? Why are we saying, oh, but, and then we put that label that she's dirty and she's, oh, I can't believe she did that, or, she was a slut, or she's a sleaze, or she's a, because, but she wouldn't be participating there if there wasn't a market there. So when you're looking at the sex industry and you're thinking those women shouldn't, did you forget about the other half of the population that is paying money for that? Because if it's dirty, then it needs to be dirty for everybody. If there's nothing wrong with it and men should be able to look at women, then there should be nothing wrong with women letting them for money. If men get paid to go lift and carry, and women have the capacity to be attractive enough for men to want to look at them, that's their skill set. Not their only skill set. Please keep that in mind. But if they're going to be treated, they're going to be raped, they're going to be molested, they're going to be assaulted, they're going to be taken advantage of in every aspect because of their beauty, because of their size, because of their, then why can't they market that? If it is a ability, a skill, a talent, a natural, something that is marketable because people want it, right? They want it so bad that they take it. She should be able to get herself out of those gutters because of that same feature. So there's my view of the sex industry. It's very one-sided. Men want what women have. Women should be able to market that. Now, decriminalizing it could cause some problems. Men will say, oh, but yeah, there's apps for friggin' everything. If a woman wants to engage in sex for money, there's an app. You get his name, you get his contact information. If there's any problems, you can track him. If he doesn't want to be tracked, isn't that an issue, right? They bust the prostitute, but not the John. If it's a crime for the John too. So if he doesn't want to be tracked, he needs to not be engaging in that activity. But we need to stop limiting women, which is going to take me into our women people. If men feel like they have to attack and assault and steal a part of us to be a man, we should be able to market that commodity, shall you say, and be able to take advantage of that. I don't even think that's taking advantage. They want, we have. Why are men allowed to sell things that other people want, but women aren't? Keep your religion out of this discussion.